In this module, we're going to dive into the view and ViewModel relationship in an Aurelia application. You'll consistently work with view and ViewModel pairs when you're building applications with Aurelia, and in this module, I want to make sure that you see how to work with dependency injection, how to make HTTP calls to the server to fetch model data, and there will be more in this module focused on views and ViewModels. A key concept in building software is the idea of maintaining a separation of concerns. It doesn't matter if you're using object-oriented design or functional decomposition, building a server application or a desktop application. You always want to write software so that you break a complex solution down into small, manageable pieces, where each piece of code has a single responsibility to focus on, and no single piece tries to manage multiple areas of complexity. This is the idea behind the presentation design pattern known as the model view model. In this module, we will fetch model data from an HTTP service. The model data will be movie information. We'll attach that model data to a view model, which is a model object specifically constructed for the responsibility of presenting data to the view and handling the behaviors associated with the view. For example, the view model can contain the logic associated with button click events. The view, on the other hand, ideally has no logic inside. It contains only the markup for the UI and some simple binding expressions that glue the view to the view model. So in short, the view has no logic, while the view model has no idea of the presentation format. This is the separation of concerns that we want to follow. Let's look in more detail at how to apply this pattern with Aurelia. We're going to continue to build on the application that we created in the introduction module, and in the introduction we learned that Aurelia will load a view model named app by default, and associate that view model with a view named app. Both of these files are in the same folder as our index.html start page. Later in the course, we'll see how we can configure Aurelia. We can load a view model of our choice, a view model with a different name, and even configure Aurelia to load a view model based on information in the current URL. But for now, I just want to show you, if I come in and I rename my app.html and my app.js as app2, if I try to run my application, we will ultimately get an error from Aurelia, app not found. It tried to go out and load app.js, didn't find it, so it threw an error that it could not find that module. So let me rename this back to app so it will work. And now to show you how deeply the view and ViewModel pattern is ingrained into Aurelia, let's look at the custom compose element. With Aurelia, you can create your own custom HTML elements. We'll look at how to do that later in the course. For now, just know that Aurelia does define some custom HTML elements by default. These are elements that you might use frequently with Aurelia, and one of these elements is the compose element. Composition is a powerful concept in software. It allows me to build up something that is complex out of simple pieces. And what the compose element will do with Aurelia is tell Aurelia that this particular piece of the presentation is going to be delegated to another view model. And this view model can be independent of the app view and the app view model. We can also have them work together. We'll take a look at more advanced scenarios later in the course. But I want something that will show the current date on the screen. So I'm going to ask Aurelia to load up the view model current date and its associated view and place the view into the DOM here where I have this compose element. And this means inside of www.root, I will need to add, first of all, an HTML file. Let's call it current date to match that module name. So current date.html, I don't need a full page. I just need a template. And I'm also going to need the associated view model. So I will add also a JavaScript file, current date.js. And just like I did with app.js, I'm going to export a class that will be my view model. Let me also call this current date and just have a simple constructor that will initialize a date field, and I'll just call new date and then ask for a date string. And that's the responsibility of the view model, to put together model information like the current date and to hold that information and make it available for the view, which will use simple data binding expressions to place that information into the appropriate place in the user interface. So if I save all the files and refresh the application, I now have a user interface that is based on two separate and independent view models. This new view model is current date, and that's also the name of the view. By default, Aurelia will just match those up. And now that we see how that works, let's go back to our app view model and see how to do some more interesting things with the server API.